Welcome to Obsidian for tabletop RPGs. Let's learn how to use the tool. Alright, g'day guys and welcome back today to another Obsidian tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at how we take an adventure or a module and basically put that adventure or module into Obsidian. How to do the data entry, how to do the formatting, what are the considerations that you sort of make when you're going through that process. So we'll jump down that sort of hole and have a look. Obviously, like some people like to run their adventures or modules out of hardcover books or out of the PDFs. My personal preference is absolutely not. Like I can't stand the concept of a hardcover book at the table, right? The flipping backwards and forwards, trying to find the right place to find the right information. It's very inefficient. And also with PDFs, I find that they're not much better. Right, so it's literally just a bookmarked book, really. It does make it easier than a hardcover book, but I personally like to have full control of my content. I like to be able to edit it and modify the module to my own needs, I guess. So whether I'm fleshing out NPCs or adding extra descriptions for things, like I like to have that ability to do that. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to jump in and have a look at how to do that process. Okay, so one of the first considerations to make when you're obviously picking an adventure or module and wanting to put it into the tool is, where am I going to get the data? Because the last thing you want to do is pick up a hardcover book and go, I'm going to put this hardcover book into Obsidian. That's a terrible idea. It's going to take you forever, right? Because you'd have to manually do the printing. There are ways you could do that, like maybe you could scan the pages and copy it into an OCR tool, like maybe OneNote, for example, has some pretty good tools for sort of scraping text off of images. We might do a separate video on that just to show you what that process looks like, but ultimately you do not want to go anywhere near hardcover content for doing digital distribution or digital data entry. What you do have then is obviously PDFs. So here's a PDF, and obviously I've been starting to look at Pathfinder, excuse me, and one of the things I really like about Paizo is that they put out PDFs, and when I come to a PDF, one of the things that you always want to do is do what I call a copy and paste check. Alright, so you come in here and actually find some of the text and come in here to like a notepad, paste the data, and just see that it pastes. Alright, it's certainly better if you go and put one of those into something that's got an error checker, because if the so like a spell check or something, because usually the spell check will actually be quite beneficial for helping you understand if there's any sort of copy and paste errors. Now, what do I mean by that? Quite simply, when PDFs were first created, they weren't certainly designed to do what we do with them now. They were designed to be sort of like static copies of documents, and it wasn't actually using text, I guess you could say. So PDFs don't use text like, let's say, Word does or Obsidian does. It actually uses, I guess, the layman's way to explain it would be like little pictures that make up words, that make it look like that they're words. So it's all about presentation of data with PDFs, and that's problematic, especially with some of the older PDFs that you might find out there, because the copy and paste just fails, right? So you have really weird characters copy over. So sometimes an old PDF is just useless. Like, you can go through and try, but I found copy and pasting from an old PDF to be an absolute pain in the you-know-what. Because you usually have to read through word by word, character by character, looking for areas that it's gone wrong. So newer PDFs are certainly easier. There's no great solution for this, guys, like unless someone's already done the data entry somewhere out there in the world. But yeah, I always do this check, and Paizo PDFs are really clean. You can see here that like this has sort of come over quite nicely. It's all readable text. But what you can tell is that it actually matches the construction, I guess you would say, of what I pasted. And what I mean there is, it's not one big paragraph, it's actually got a lot of line breaks in there, so that's just how that works. So PDF is certainly one option to get there, but it has a little bit of work. Another really good sort of option out there, and we'll speak to the dragon in the room. Dungeons and Dragons obviously have D&D Beyond. So if we come in here and have a look at, let's just grab a source. Curse of Strahd. Here we go. Fortunes of Ravenloft. Alright, actually I don't have that one. What's a free adventure in here? we've turned off our subscription for this because we're moving over to Pathfinder. There it is, Lost Mines of Phandelver. So we'll jump into a town description. Alright, we'll just grab this text and copy it in. Again, to my notepad. Notepad's a great way to test what text looks like. And you can see here that it takes up the whole screen, so there's less break lines. Okay, so what this generally means, guys, is that it's easier to copy and paste from a web service than it is from a PDF. It's easier to copy and paste from a PDF than it is from a hardcover book. So try to think about that sort of process flow, right? Like, always use the digital copy if you can. Alright, so another way that obviously we're looking, so I'm doing a Pathfinder module today, so we're going to have a look at Pathfinder. This is Demiplane Nexus, and they have the Pathfinder Nexus. So if we go in here, I've actually got some copies of the content here. Alright, so if we come down here, where's my content? Sources, adventure paths, no, it's a standalone adventure. And this is still in a early closed beta, guys, so just be aware of that. Now what are we looking for? We're looking for a fistful of flowers. Alright, we can come in here and we can go to the introduction and we can find the adventure. Alright, and now we can copy and paste this into our notepad and have a look at it, and we can see that that is nicely formatted. Okay, now I'm going to go and do the painful process today. I'm going to go from PDF. It would be much easier to copy and paste from here than the PDF. Okay, so but there's some things that you will learn by me doing a PDF that are probably more beneficial. So I'm going to stick this one aside. This would absolutely be the better way to do it, right? Purchase the content on here and copy and paste it across. And I just want to throw this idea out there. If you've got Foundry, for example, I found that you can purchase the Paizo Foundry modules, import them into Foundry, and then export them using, there's a module or a plugin there to export to Obsidian, and you can actually get the entire adventure already formatted, already sort of laid out straight across. Alright, so we'll do another video on that as well. Alright, but anyway, we're going to start here. We're going to do this module here, a fistful of flowers. It's nice and bright, it's colourful, and it's free. Alright, so it's a good one to learn from. Okay, so we have our PDF. Now we've got to figure out where it's going to go. And obviously vault hierarchy is something people like to talk about. So we'll just jump in and have a quick look. This is my personal vault that I use. And we can see here that I've got some folders here. And what I tend to do is I have a world folder. Now that comes from my Realmworks days where we used to have something called the World Almanac, which is where you would stick all your story and your modules and your world topics. So I've kind of like just brought that idea over. So we've got the world here. I then break it out into 3 folders. So I've got FR, which is my Forgotten Realms, sort of like entire Wikipedia of the area that we play in. Alright, so that's there. But then I've got my 5e modules and my third-party modules. Now, I like to break it down like that just because it makes it easier for me. But if we have a look at my 5e modules, you can see I then break that out into a folder per module. Alright, and then from there I break it out even further. So here I'm running Tyranny of Dragons. Anyone familiar with the content would know that Tyranny of Dragons comes in 2 sort of sections. So you've got Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. So from there I then break that out until I've got folders. So let's go through and do something similar over here. I'm going to use my data entry folder, and what we're going to do is I'm going to rename that. Alright, I'll read that to my World Almanac. Now, you'll notice on my other one that I called it World, not World Almanac, so I might actually even replicate that here. Now, the reasoning for that, guys, is that Windows actually has a hard limit on how many characters can exist in a file path. Alright, the more characters you get, the closer you get to the limit. And it's better with Windows 10 than it used to be with like Windows XP. But Windows does some really funky things sometimes when you start to get to that character limit. And personally, I had trouble with data view early on, so I've shortened a lot of things in my name. So something to consider. Alright, so I've got my world folder. In there, I'm going to now create a folder for, let's just go one-shot adventures. Alright, and we're going to come up and grab the PDF, and we're going to come in here and go, alright, so it's called A Fistful of Flowers. So what I'll do is I'll make a folder and call that A Fistful of Flowers. Oh, looks like I can't spell. Alright, now, why a folder? Alright, because I use folder notes. Alright, so if I can control click that now and turn that into a folder note, I now have that as an actual note that I can do. And I like to use that sort of like as the parent hierarchy object that sort of contains that module. And that way I can go through and start adding some cool things to it. So like for example here, what I will quite often do is just use a screenshot. And I'm using a free application here called ShareX, which is how I do this sort of really detailed screenshots. I will basically copy that and paste that into here. Alright, so I've got a nice copy of it, and then I will come through, usually have a look under here and kind of like grab some of the content, right? So we might grab this. Here is kind of like a call out. Alright, and then we'll come back and have a look what else is suitable to actually stay here, like where does the adventure begin? Alright, we've got an adventure background, so I'll probably bring that in as well. And we'll paste that here. Alright, now, I just want to explain the difference between paste. So Control V, alright, is something that you can use, but a Control Shift V is another option. Now, the big difference there, guys, is that Control V will bring across any of the back formatting. So, for example, here, alright, let's have a look at that. So I pasted that with a Control V, which means I get that URL in there that's kind of functional and working. But if we come back up to here and do this as a Control Shift V, it still works. So I'm messing up with what I do, but the point here is that when you Control V, it basically brings across the formatting. Alright, so let's say you have a URL, it will actually paste the URL. Okay, if you do a Control Shift V, it converts the URL into the visible text. Alright, now I prefer that, I find that a lot easier. Okay, especially when I'm doing data entry. But we've pasted in these sort of these sections here, and we can see they've got some large chunky areas that are looking really ugly. So we need to obviously remove the break lines, and you could come in here and you could press space delete and then go down, space delete, space delete, space delete, space delete. Alright, to remove the break lines and put that back in, but that's obviously going to take a long time. Alright, now what do we do outside of that? Well, we come here to community plugins, we'll browse. I think it's called text format. Alright, we're going to install text format, enable it, go to the hotkeys and come through and have a look through here and see merge broken paragraphs in selection. We're going to put a hotkey there, so I'm going to put that as Alt V. Alright. And you can see there's other options here, there's all sorts of cool stuff, but this is the one I use, merge broken paragraphs in selections. Because now what I can do, and this is, it's a process thing, I usually find the areas that belong in their own line, and I put a enter after them, and then I might highlight the whole lot and go Alt V, alright, and boom, that's just automatically gone through there. Alright, now we need to start formatting. So it's marked down, so we're going to use a hashtag. Alright, so we now have an adventure background that looks nice. We can see here that obviously we've got that nice formatting going on. We've got a picture. Okay, so it's starting to take shape. Alright, let's go through. Now it does have a table of contents here. I leave my table of contents to last, alright, because I don't have the content in here yet that I'm going to obviously use. So, we're now up to chapter 1. The Great Grain Robbery. Alright, so we're going to come in here, I'm going to make a new note underneath this. Alright, called The Great Grain Robbery. Now, do you put chapter 1 in the name? I think so, yes. All right, you can shorten that if you like. Now the reason why is that by having a very simple sort of structured naming convention at the start that's sort of the same, so you're able to sort it. All right, so chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter 3. Now what I'm going to do here is actually skip ahead and make the notes for each chapter. Okay, so we got chapter 2 here. Dig 4 plots. And we're going to go come in here and we're going to go new note chapter 2. Make sure we do it obviously in the same format, dig 4 plots. Now we'll make sure that regardless of the name, alright, because it was dig 4 plots versus just the Great Grain, dig 4 plots would come first. It actually sorts it in the right order, so that's a really sort of good call out there. And then I'll come in here, concluding the adventure. Now, why am I doing this? Why am I going ahead and making these notes now ahead of time? It's for linking, okay? So if I go ahead and make these things now, then basically the linking will be in place so that any time it's actually mentioned, that it's actually going to go through and pick that up. All right, excuse me. We have a couple of NPCs here. So usually what I'll do is I'll go folder, NPCs, and then in here we're going to make a new note, bottle speaker. I will rewrite that just in sentence caps. Fluffing. Popcorn. This sounds like a really interesting module. Reaching rings. So keeping in mind that it doesn't matter what content is in these, just that the names exist, right? So that we can go through and basically get everything we need from it. Alright, we have that, cool. Alright, so we now have the layout. Alright, we've got the folder structure, we've got the folder note that sort of kicks this all off. We've got the folder notes section here that I usually don't like to use, so I'll get rid of it. Okay, and what I might do here, I'm using the ITS theme, so I might put it right there. Alright, and now that module is over on the right, really sort of nicely formatted. So for anyone who missed that, that's just a pipe and then right using the ITS theme. Okay. That's why mine kind of has this this D&D look, and I've got other videos on that if you want to know how to set that up. Alright, so we have got a structure, we've got the chapters, alright, and now we just need to basically go through and copy in the content. So we'll come in here, we'll grab chapter 1, we'll copy it there. Now, just be careful with some PDFs when you do this, right? So that was a pretty clean select all, but you'll notice sometimes that it actually picks up these sort of characters at the end. Always pay close attention when you're pasting these things in to where that sort of paragraph sort of section interjects with another paragraph, because sometimes you get some funky sort of stuff in there. But as you can see, it's quite easy to come in here and see where the paragraphs end usually. It looks like there's one here and then another one there. Alright, so it's very easy to see where the paragraphs are, so I'm just going to go through, add those in. I'm obviously looking for full stops. I'm looking for anywhere where it might be indicative that there's a new line. Here it's hardly in a fistful, so my brain, just the way it works is I read the first sort of 3 words in each paragraph. So here it's an in a fistful, so here it's in a fistful. Alright, so I have like that sort of structured right. Alright, then we come through as the river crossing while. We've got the river crossing, as the river crossing, and while. Alright, so all I'm doing is just a very quick validation that I have the break lines in the right place. So clues A, the, Alright, clues. So I'm missing one here. So clues AV. Crossing the river if the. Alright, crossing the river, missing one there. If the. Alright, so that's the way my brain works, right? I'm just looking for keywords that are on the very first sort of like part of a line, so I can tell when those things go. Now I'm basically going to highlight this whole content and press Alt-V, and we now have that in a much better formatting. So now I can come here and I add my hashes to turn it into a title. Alright, we've got clues here that needs to be sort of bolded in order to, you know, bring that out. And there's another one there for crossing the river. Alright, so that's just Control B to add a bold. And we have a call out box here. Alright, so that's a readme box. So the first two paragraphs need to be a readme box. And here's one for you. I press Alt-T to bring up my templates. Type in call, and I have my call outs, and we're going to have the read aloud section. Alright, so I have a template that basically just has that in it. Alright, set up using my template hotkey, and I just basically press it and delete that. Press delete to bring that back in. Alright, now this one has to be in there as well, so I press delete to bring it back up the same line, and then press enter. But I want another one in there, so I'll come up here and press enter just to put another line there. And now we have that in a read aloud box. Alright, so again, that's on templates. And that's very simple to do. You're just basically creating a note in your templates, and my Patreons have access to these templates as well. You can see in here, templates, I've got a folder for Markdown, and then a call out box, and then inside that I have all of my call out templates. In this one here, we use the read aloud. So you can see that this is just that. Alright, and by using that I've basically got a way to say, hey, I want to import this in, and off it goes. I do have the call out boxes here as a parent note with all of them. So if I'm ever like sort of, oh, what colour do I want, or what icon do I want, I can come in here and see which ones I want and pick it. Alright, but we've got that entered, we've got that done. Alright, so I do page by page, and the reason why I don't go outside of that is sometimes that issue when you're swapping from page to page, you might actually end up with, and here it might be a good example actually, you might end up with some of that sort of content in between. So see here, alright, so this is in the PDF, right? So it's my copy of the PDF, it's added this content here, and when I've copied and pasted between notes, it's basically brought that whole section across in it. So I don't ever just copy a whole PDF and bring the whole thing in. I literally go page by page. Alright, so here I'll do up to there. That's actually a monster, so I won't do glimmer, but I will certainly come in here and do all of the normal text. Do my Control-Shift-V, alright, get it in here, and basically repeat this process, okay? So come in here, put in the enters, find out where all of the paragraphs start. You can get pretty quick at this, obviously, like as you get better at this, they start to stick out, because obviously you're looking for a full stop and you're looking for a capital at the start of the line. There we go. So we'll just come through and we'll do our Alt-V. There we go. Alright. Hash. And this is why I see people are like, oh, I don't want to use Markdown, it's too hard. Like, this is so easy, guys. So easy. Alright. Now we've got tracking the footprints is bolded. Alright, so if we come up, we got clues, we got creature. Where did tracking the footprints go? There we go. And again, there, my brain's just looking for a word followed by the colon there, right? So that I can basically know where those things go in. So then I just do a check, tracking the footprints, clues, creature. I just bolded all of those. I've got one heading that I've just made, no problems. Now I do have an image here, so I'll copy that. We'll come over to here, and we'll paste it. and then we'll have a look. That is absolutely horrid, because obviously you can see here that it's got the black background in it. I will probably just I'll skip that for now. Like that's a fairly big process to take that out. You can put it into Gimp and take it out. I've heard there's even some new AI tools that are out there. Or there's things like this, like you can go down, and I've done this before, you can find out what the background color is. So in this case here it's white. I'm going to fill it with my white box, and again this is ShareX. Oh, that is terrible, that wasn't white at all. Let's just use the dropper tool. We'll do the same with the background. Alright, so I've picked white, and what you do, you just create boxes here, right? You're just getting rid of the text. Alright, now keep in mind this is for my own personal use, so you shouldn't do this and then obviously give this stuff out to people. Alright, so this is one way to do it. I actually prefer using it in Gimp, because when you do it in Gimp you can actually make it transparent quite easily. But this is a nice simple way to do it. Alright, and then from there you can obviously do your copy and then paste in. I don't think this is going to work at all. Like I don't do it this way normally. Let's just have a look what that looked like. Oh yeah, there we go. We kind of need to get just there. There we go. Alright, that works. So I'll delete these two, paste the new one. There we go. We now have a cleaner picture with a white background. As I said, I would usually do that in Gimp and make it transparent. Put a right in there. Alright, and now we have the picture on the right. It's a bit better laid out, so kind of similar to what the module was. And we can go back to our module and keep going. Now we've actually got a stat block here. Alright, I usually will skip those and do them last. Alright, because usually they're probably the most complex section. But what I would do, you can actually see they've just got a call out here. Come here, paste this in. Alright, and I'm just going to put a glimmer in there. Just so I know to come back, and I'll scan this at the end and come back and sort of find out where that section was. Alright, so that's page 2 done. Now, I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'm just going to look for situations where, it kind of makes sense for us to talk about the structure and the process. Looks like we're getting close to a nice call-out box. See how I copied from here to here instead of the whole page this time? Alright, what I'm actually looking for here is the fact that I've got a stat block, so I want to stop there. I don't want to copy that whole thing in, because it just caused me more work. Control-Shift-V, that's nice and easy. Enters Alt-V, Control-V, ##, Control-B. Right, so as you can see, like by the time you've actually figured out how to do this, it's pretty quick. Now here we've got a reward. Here's another thing you could do, is I like to use the equals, and that highlights it. Alright, like that. Pretty sure that comes from the ITS theme. Now here we've got another call-out box. Now notice that when I do the cut and paste, or the copy from here to here, it doesn't actually include that call-out box. This is actually a separate sort of entity within the PDF, so it's handled differently. Alright, but if you do it separately, it works out really easily. So that's one way to do it. V. Alright, nice and easy. And then we'll go to the pedal book. So this is a process, right? It takes time to do what I'm doing, which is why I'm not gonna do the whole lot, right? I'll just show you what needs to be done to make it happen. Now the reason why I did that, notice how I've been putting a break line between my chapters. I didn't have one here. So at the end of a title, make sure you stick an extra break line when you do your Alt V so it doesn't break it. Generally, the extra break line is controlled by the markdown, so it doesn't matter, alright? And what I mean by that is I can come in here and probably stick 6 of these things in, and it doesn't matter, alright? Because markdown says that, you know, I'm going to make this pretty for you, and you've got a pre-formatted way that this should look. Alright, so that's kind of like generic structure. We've seen how to do chapters, we've seen how to do callouts. We do need to come here and have a look at this. Actually, so I'm going to do this next page. So here I've got A1 Crystal Room. A1 generally tells me straight away that this is a room in a dungeon. Alright, so I want to do something here. So I'm going to copy this in. Now, see how this one here didn't actually end on an endpoint, so I'll actually just do my Control-Shift-V from that point there and continue that sentence. We got to read aloud. It's a lot easier to get your formatting right at this point than it is to go back afterwards and try to find it. Alright, so it looks like we're just about there. No full stop, that's fine. Alright, time for the Alt V. Alt V changes everything. That text format plugin is fantastic. Alright, puts it all back together. And now we just go da-da. And here. Now, let's talk about this. Alright, so this is a dungeon, effectively now. It's a room in a dungeon, I guess I like to call it. And we can see that it's starting to become a... there's going to be a call out per sort of room. So that's why I changed the indentation level. Alright, I've been working on 2s up to now, and I've just moved to 3, because I want these all to nest underneath these. Okay? If we come in here, we can see sort of like the next one will come in underneath. Alright, and I'll do a similar sort of thing here where I put in 3 hashes, so it's calling out. And what that's for is that so I can nest these. Alright, I can nest these out. I can have A1, I can have A2. Alright, it just makes it easier for me to read that content sometimes when I'm doing it. But I'm also going to use it in the linking with the map. Okay, so let's have a look at that. The maps in here are right at the back. Okay, so that looks nice and easy. We've got 2 maps. Alright, looks like they're separate images and I can tell by clicking them, so I can just copy that. And we're going to come in here, and usually I like to have my map at the start of the section here for it. Okay, there we go. Copied it in. Now, naming convention for my items. Obviously I'm pasting a lot of things, and if you're brand new to the tool you may not have seen this, but all of my assets are going to my assets folder where my pasted images are going, so I don't have to see them. You can right click any folder and say set as attachment folder. That's where these are going. But I do like to sort of, like in my own vault, rename things as they go. So I'll go map dash what is it, crystals, candle wax. Helps if I could spell. Alright, just makes it easier for me to later sort of sort through that folder. But this isn't a map either, okay? So this is just an image right now. Alright, you can't pin anything to it. It is handy, but it's not as useful as it could be, given like what the information could contain. So what do? Well, I press Alt-T, I type in map, and I have my map templates. And anyone who's seen my video on Leaflet, if you haven't, go back and check that out. Like, that's where you can get these templates. This here is a dungeon map though, so I'm going to copy in the dungeon map. I'm going to copy that line of text right there. I'm going to replace that into here, and then I will actually delete this original because I don't need it anymore. And here we have my dungeon map. So now, ooh, that was bad. Now we're just going to zoom in to sort of where I think it should be, and that's about the level of zoom that I want. 16.5 is the current level of zoom. I can tell that by holding over this mouse here. So I'm going to come in here and put my default zoom as 16.5. Now, when I render it, I'm getting that direct sort of map. I want my height to be a lot less, but I want my width to be a little bit more. Okay, there we go. Now my width there is probably a little bit higher than what it needs to be, so we'll go back to 80. There we go. Alright, so now I have my map in my tool, and what does that mean? It means I can now come through and actually update these things with where they are. So we have a crystal room. I'm guessing that's this room here. Usually the books will clearly call out what they are, but this might be just a bit smaller here, so they've probably skipped it for keeping the page limit down. But this looks like a crystal room, so we'll right click and we'll have probably a point of interest for me. Keep in mind you can make your own marker types, and that's what I've done here. And the reason why I've done that is that now I can do this, right? I can do chapter 1 in the note to open, the Great Grain Robbery. Alright, and that links it to this entire note. But I want to go further than that, so I'm going to do a hashtag, and we can now see a list of all the headings. Alright, and we can see the headings 2, the headings 3, the headings 4. That's based on how many hashtags we've put into there. And so I can easily come down here and go, alright, well, heading 3, Crystal Room, Trivial. Alright, we'll put that in there. Alright, and now, oh, it changed to a star. That's unexpected. When I hover that, we can see the A1 Crystal Room, Trivial. Alright, so it's bringing in this information. We have a wax laboratory, moderate. I'm guessing this is the wax laboratory, so we'll come in here. I'm going to do that again and see if I can replicate that, because that's not something I've seen before. Chapter 1, hashtag, there we go. It didn't actually change. I must have changed this. Quite like the star. It's a city. Okay, that's why. I changed it. Okay, so there we go. Now, another thing you can do, especially with rooms that are, small, you might put the read aloud description in the actual description. Alright, so that way when you hover, you actually get that bit of text. Completely up to you. I don't tend to use the description whatsoever. I just tend to sort of use it there. Alright, so yeah, now we have the crystals and counter wax. We can start basically coming through and putting all of the content in there. And we just go through and we make sure that we've got everything. Now, as I said, we're probably... we're not that far off, are we? Stuff it. We're going to power through this, guys. We're going to do the whole thing. This is going to be a long video. Crystals and counter wax, Petalbrook. We're up to the Crystal Room Trivial. There we go. Member of there. Alright, we're going to come in here. There's actually not that many pages in this. Alright, finish that off. We're going to need a bad vibrations hazard. And again, these are just things for me to say, hey, you need to come back and fix this. Careful you don't highlight things when you do your enters, because you will delete everything. Control Shift left right is really handy when you're doing lots of data entry because it skips from word to word, if you're not aware of that. The top of this up to the ceiling needs to be really loud. So Alt-T, I can just type read aloud. Now we have that in a read aloud, just like that. Alt-V. Here's something that I like to do. So see where I've got these DC 15 athletics? I like to actually highlight that when I'm putting the module in. Alright, and the reason why I do that is that it really sort of, when I'm reading this content, it calls out to me and says, hey, there's something here. Alright, it just helps me draw my eye to it. It looks like this once I'm done. And again, that's using the ITS theme. So if you're not using the ITS theme, apologies, but it is my favorite. Alright, done. Always a bit careful when I'm like copy and pasting. See how it's flicking up here? So I just want to be careful there because I reckon I'm actually going to bring in some more stuff that I don't want to bring in. Alright, we've got a Darius here. Alt-V. Alright, okay, so now we have to bring in a creature. So I'll just come back to that later. And doing this way, like, by not stopping and worrying too much about the really sort of clunky stuff that's going to slow me down, it means I can sort of bulk this out into sections of similar activities. And I guess that's what I'm doing, right? Just so you understand my mindset here. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that's sort of the same at the same one time. Because that way my muscle memory starts to pick up on the fact that I'm doing this one sort of thing. And it makes sure that, you know, I can focus on it. Get it right, get it quick, do it more efficiently. It's all about efficiency. Alright, I got another one there. Alright, now we're actually into chapter 2. Didn't even realise. So now I'll just cut and paste there. I've actually got that whole sort of chapter 1 down. And I'll just paste this into chapter 2. Alright, so we'll go back to here. Chapter 1, sorry. We've now copied in all of that sort of content that I need. So we'll just come in here and we'll finalise this. So we'll add in, I'll use the star. I might change all this to star now because I quite like it. Do my hashtag. Is that the bedroom or the cluttered storeroom? I reckon it's the cluttered storeroom. Yep. And then we have one for the bedroom. ch1 hash, and we got the bedroom. Alright, so now that map is done. Now, why do I like to use this map in something that's so small? And I probably wouldn't, to be honest, it's probably not necessary. But just so you guys are aware of what you can do here when you are playing a game, is you can control click the note again, right? So you've got a second copy of it, and actually then drag that out, you know, to another pane somewhere. And then when you come in here, we have to change this to preview mode. Alright, you can actually have this thing here. Now, what we do is we right click and we pin it. Alright, that's the trick. So now we can actually click here and use that to navigate our content over here on the right. So the trick is the pinning, guys. If you pin a note, it will basically pin that note in that frame where it is and then force it into the main area. So force that change. So really handy way to sort of navigate your content. Alright, so we'll close that out. I don't need it for now. Alright, So that note, or that chapter, is largely sort of got everything we need there. Looks like we've got 2 pages left to go on this module. We've done down to there, so we're going to come in here. I'm going to grab all this. We'll go to chapter 2. And we'll do our Control-Shift-V and off we go. So just to speak to a little bit about how long it usually takes me to do a module, like a big book might be 4 or 5 nights, all right? But I find the process to be rather relaxing, if I'm quite honest. Like, I quite like sitting here, just being able to tune out and let my brain turn off. It's quite relaxing. But we're not all weird like I am. Can't see anything else there. Alright, Party Crashes, Severe 3, that's obviously some sort of threat. We've got 3 different separate chapters in this one. That's something I do, like as I'm doing the cut and paste, I'm starting to already look at like the layout and counting how many chapters there are so that I can go through and obviously do that. That doesn't look like that's necessary. And here's the concluding the adventure. Alright. So we've now got the bulk of all the text in. So really we're kind of at a point now where the module is almost done. We probably just need a little bit more of formatting, maybe bring a few more images in. So, you know what, I'm just going to do a GIMP example for you guys, just to show you. Again, I've heard there's some really cool tools out there for snatching this. I haven't found out what they are yet. Alright, so GIMP, edit, paste as new image. Alright, you can see the black in there. And usually what I use, where is it? I'm having a brain moment. Let's put clone tool, the wizard. There we go. Alright, the wizard icon, what that does is that clicks and it basically, based on the colour, goes through and selects everything. Now, you have a threshold over here, so sometimes if it's too, if the threshold's not right, we'll actually sort of break it. But you can see when I deleted it, it went to white, so one thing I want to do is go to colour and go, is it colour? Layer, sorry, layer, transparency, add alpha channel. And now when I delete, I get this crisscross, and that means that it's transparent. So I can do that here. This is a messy picture. What is going on? Alright, my hotkeys are messing up. Yeah. Alright, so conceptually that's pretty easy, right? You can come in here and get rid of the colours. Obviously the black stands out, so you can clear that off pretty easily. It's not a fantastic result here because you can see there's lots of noise around here, and I might usually spend more time cleaning this up. But for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to edit all, copy, come back to here, find in my PDF where it belongs. So Party Crashes, Lady Constance, Party Crashes, Lady Constance. I like to stick the picture on the line above, and the reason for that is I do the equals right so that when I put it together, there it is. Now you can see here what I mean about the noise on this. So As I said, there's some tools out there. I think there are even AI tools where you just sort of throw these pictures in and it just cleans it up for you. I need to get good at using one of those. But yes, now here, my naming convention, I'm going to right click and rename. I'm going to call this an image. Or I might even call it like an NPC. Alright, so that later I can put them in a folder maybe. Alright, so you can see there was a fair bit of effort involved there in taking a picture from a PDF and then using that inside of your vault. And, you know, largely that's probably due to some like piracy protection, like they make sure that some of those pictures are actually quite messy. And it's, you know, part of probably the piracy protection stuff that's built into Adobe other ways to picture, like I'm not 100% sure there. But there is certainly an easier way, and I just wanted to really call this out because, you know, after going to all that effort, I was like, Jesus, maybe I could go find this AI tool to speed this up and do it quicker. But then I remembered that, you know, I do have the digital copy of this content, right? So here in Demiplane, which provides lovely digital copies, there's pictures here already. So if we come up here and actually find the picture of Glimmer that we just went through, just do a right-click copy and then come here. We'll paste this next to each other. Alright, look at that. Alright, the transparency is already there. They've done the fading on the edge. So that is just so much easier than going to the effort of doing all of that yourself. Alright, so let's do a Glimmer 2. And I will quite literally just get rid of this and use that version there. That is a lot neater than what I had previously. I've done the same thing with this guy here, so you can see that that's nice and clean. So certainly something to consider is that is just easier, right? It's easier to purchase your content on one of these. All right, then you legally own it, right? I'm always going to encourage you guys to purchase your content and then copy it over. Okay, so now we've got our pictures inside of the content ready to use, and the next thing I like to think about, well, is how I'm going to use those pictures, right? Because a picture to the Dungeon Master is fantastic to help you understand what something looks like and obviously provide those descriptions, but I have a player-facing screen. Alright, so I actually have a screen on the wall behind my DM station facing my table and my players, so they can look up at any time and see what I'm showing them. And I like to obviously be able to, you know, basically just right-click an image and say show to players. So let's go through and set that up. Alright, we've got Lady Constance here, and setting this up is actually quite easy. So what I do is I copy the actual link to the image and I put it in here, but I take the exclamation mark away at the end. I get rid of the right, alright, and I'm going to do a pipe show to players. Okay, and what that does is it says it renames this link. Alright, so see it's just got that link now, it says show to players. All that's doing is saying I want to link to here, but then I want you to display this text instead when you do that. Alright, which gives you this. And what I can do with that is obviously I can hold my mouse over it, that's one way, but I can right click it. And you can probably open in a new window is one way you can do it. That's the default built into sort of Obsidian method. Now, I don't like that method, alright, because I share it to a TV behind me. It's a pretty big TV. Alright, so this image is not stretching, which means that's not really any good for me. So what I want to do is actually have that take up the whole TV. And the way I do that is I actually go through and I install the second window plugin. Alright, so here we have Second Window by Jeremy Valentine. Please don't turn this off, Jeremy, it's amazing. Alright, we just basically have that enabled, and what we have now when we right click is we have a new option called Open in New Window. Alright, now, so that opens in a new window. You can tell it's second window because it doesn't have the theme on it. It's just like a nice white background. But if I double click that, you can see it takes up the whole screen. So what I do is I actually basically have that over on a screen, like at the start of my session, as I open that up and I stick it on that window. And I have it there listening, and that way that if I come back to another note, let's say, let's just go through and add another picture here, for example. Alright, so we have a second picture there of this guy here. Alright, it's currently on her. I'll see if you actually won't be able to see that. Actually, if I do it this way and this way, we'll get rid of that. Alright, so let's say this is on the second screen, and then I'm over here on this screen. What I can do is I can go right click, show to players, open a new window, and it just opens that up. Now that is the same window, okay, that's basically sits there listening on that screen. So what that means is I can set it and forget it, and then I can just basically come along and go, alright, let's take these and connect it up. So that makes it nice and easy. Alright, so I do that with all of my pictures, all of my NPCs, all my magic items. I'll add monster pictures in there usually, and I'll go through and set that up. Okay, so now we have the bulk of the content entered for this module. Okay, it's a short one, but basically we have all the text, we've done the formatting, we've got the pictures, call-out boxes, they're all done, right? So where do we go next? And what I like to do is make this actually suitable to be used as a tool where you can actually run the game and run the combat specifically in the actual tool itself. All right, so previously, like I'm sure everyone probably started with a pad of paper or maybe using Microsoft Excel. Then you move on to tools like Hero Lab Classic is what I used to use. But in Obsidian we obviously have the initiative tracker, which can be used to completely manage combat, and I like to use that. So what we'll do is we'll come here into this note and find out where we actually have a creature. And we have this Darius's campsite here. There's a creature here. Now, I haven't read this, to be honest, so I don't know if there is going to be a fight, but what I like to make sure that I do is if there's a fight, I'm ready to have that fight. So what would I do? I'll come down here under creature, and I'm going to press Alt-T, which is trigger my template, type in monster, and I'm going to use my insert monster TTRPG stat block template. And here I will just change the name to Pixie. Alright, and here we go. Now, this is the Pathfinder 2nd edition sort of stuff that's installed. This vault is highly confused because it started as a 5th edition vault, and I've actually tried to turn it into a Pathfinder 2e vault for the purpose of this video, so it's not liking it. But just note that if this was a proper Pathfinder 2e vault set up, that all of these links would work automatically as well, and you get access to all that stuff. I just don't have that in this vault. Excuse me. So now we have the stat block. All right, lovely looking stat block, this one. And it's kind of optional if you do that, right? Because the one thing that I find is probably more useful is the insert encounter. And here, what we're going to do, we've got Glimmer is the name. We've got one creature that's coming in here, and it's a pixie. All right, and what that does is that gives me this little thing here, which basically means I'm reading my text, we're playing the game, we get to a point where there's combat, I say roll initiative, I hit this button, alright, and usually the party's all configured in here as well. They'll get added to the initiative combat. I can click this to bring up the stat block as well, and we can just go through and start reading through all of this and start playing the game. 309, yep. Alright, cool. So, basically, this is very, very handy. There's multiple ways you can do this as well, by the way. So encounter, you can add a /table behind that, and it formats this like this, which I quite like. It's a kind of like a smaller, condensed version of it. So that could be quite handy. So that's just the encounter table with a /table on the end. And don't forget, guys, like, make your templates. Alright, so I cannot stress enough how handy that is, right? So insert encounter, you can make your templates. I've even got one for a table one. Alright, I don't think that's actually working right now. And then I've got a custom monster. Alright, so I've actually got the template in here for a custom monster as well. Now this is a 5th edition one, so it's probably not working too successfully. But you know, have your templates so that you can basically set this up really quickly. Because now all I have to do is just come through here and have a quick read and go, alright, who's actually fighting what? Where are they fighting? Alright, so we've got Darius Wick here. He's going to be fighting as well. Alright, so we'll bring up the PDF and we'll have a look. What is Darius? He's a human alchemist. Now, I wonder if Alchemist is actually a stat block. I'll put the name as Darius Week. No, it's not there. So I would need to create a custom one. Now, I won't cover that in video because that's another 20 minutes to go through that. You can look up my other videos on the fantasy stat block or the TTRPG stat block, as it used to be called, in order to figure out how to do that. But it is quite simply text, guys. You can go through and modify that and save it, and just make a note that references that. Alright, so once you've got that in, you've basically got your ability to trigger combat, you've got your stat blocks, you can see I'm calling out any checks that need to be done. This has become a really sort of useful thing, and as I'm doing this, sometimes I'll read it as I go, other times I might come through afterwards once I've formatted it all and do the big read. But it's a really good way to sort of get to understand the content and the layout of the content and where things are obviously stored. So you can take this whole level. Now, beyond this, I guess there's another step we can go, and that is linking. Alright, so this isn't going to work really well in this because it's not a Pathfinder 2e Vault, alright, but we do have the ability here with the outgoing links. Alright, and then there should be another one for the backlinks. Alright, so we'll go to outgoing links. If you don't have that enabled, it's under settings and core plugins. And we can see outgoing links, make sure it's enabled. Alright, and basically what this does is you can go through and configure this, right? So let's say that we have a pixie, and as I said, this isn't a Pathfinder 2 Vault. Alright, so I don't actually have a lot of things that are set up. But we can expand out the unlinked mentions. Alright, and the unlinked mentions is all the things that basically could be linked from here. Alright, so you can see it's starting to come alive. I'll actually close this so we've got more room. Alright, and you can see all of these different reference points. And usually this will be one of the last things I do, right? Is I come through and I click, you know, popcorn, and I click Sprite, and I click Lishi. Like I link all these things together so those links start happening. The rope, I like that you can click that. You can see that that's now got a link to my rope note. Yes, I have a note rope. Alright, and you go through and you basically link this all up. Now, I'm not going to do this now because that's another probably couple of hours on the video, let's be completely honest. I like to take my time with this, alright, so it's certainly something that you can take your time with. You can see where I'm getting my confusion here. I've got notes all over the place. But yeah, come through, do your linking. That way you can obviously have everything here. Just to throw out another idea here, another thing that I do is I have a note per monster. Alright, so you can see here that I've got a note for my pixie, and if I go into this pixie note, alright, you can see I've got the stat block, and you can see I've got the encounter block already. And what that means is I don't technically need this, alright, because if I've got pixie that's already linked in here, I can just scroll down and actually click this, and it starts the combat that way. So that way any mention in my text of a monster that basically I have in my vault or have in my bestiary can just automatically be used just by linking to it to trigger my encounter block and bring that up. So that's another sort of way to save this. I'm leaning more towards this method now because it's just easier to have it there. I just do it as part of my setup. Alright, let's just quickly figure out where we are. We've got maps, we've got text, we've got formatting. There's probably some extra stat blocks that I need to add to polish this off properly. But as I said, I won't go through that in this video. It's just too much detail. But certainly, like as you can see, it doesn't take long to go through and enter a module. The better the quality you can find of the actual source of the module, the easier your job is going to be. And I really cannot recommend highly enough tools like, you know, Pathfinder Nexus or Demiplane, and D&D Beyond, right? So if you own the content in a digital format, the job you're going to have of copying that over is just so much easier, and it's going to make your life easier. All right, so if that's, you know, you don't have to do what I'm doing here. You could just run it out of these tools if you're running literally the book out of the book, like page for page. But if you want to do your own modification, then I certainly do find that it's beneficial to go and copy and paste it into a tool like Obsidian. But yeah, alright, well there we go guys. So that's been sort of like a pretty long video, apologies, but hopefully an interesting one for some of you who like to see, how things are laid out and how I do things. It might give you some ideas that you weren't aware of. I don't think there's anything original in this video that we haven't done before, but sometimes people just like to see it all pieced together. So anyway, outside of that guys, hopefully you found this useful. If you do, please do like and subscribe. I certainly appreciate every like and every subscription that I get. And obviously I want to say a massive and huge shout out to my Patreons. Thank you very much for your support. Just as a big sort of call out, we have opened up the Discord server to the public now, so anyone can come along and join in there. We've got links all over the place for that, but it'll be in the description below. Feel free to come and join us. I think we're about to hit 500 members of that, and it's just absolutely come alive with all sorts of people talking about their use of Obsidian in TTRPG worlds, and oh my god, I cannot keep up anymore. But it's fantastic for the community, right? We're really seeing everyone sort of come together. But yeah, outside of that, have a great day, and I will speak to you on the socials.